Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the event of an emergency, all people may exit right or left from this room and proceed to an exit door. All doors will open from the inside. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Haledon Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the North Jersey Record Herald News, the board's official newspaper, on January 15th, 2025. Notices of this meeting indicating date, time, and place were posted publicly on the door of the main entrance to the school and filed with the clerk in the municipality of Haledon. Roll call, please.
Ms. Serna? Mr. Coletta?
Present.
Ms. Quadrado?
Here.
Mr. Guzman? Mrs. Johnson? Here. Mr. Martinez?
Here.
Mr. Maxwell?
Here.
Mr. Ramadan?
Here.
And Mrs. Issa?
Here. Okay, so Mr. Merlino said that he's going to do the ethics training during his report.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll skip down to the committee representative assignments. Can I have a motion to accept the committees for 2025?
So move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Ms. Quadrado?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Yes.
And Mrs. Issa?
Yes. Okay, can I have a motion to accept correspondence?
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Ms. Quadrado?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Yes.
And Mrs. Issa?
Yes. Okay, can I have a motion to approve prior minutes?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Quadrado, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Mrs. Quadrado?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Yes.
And Mrs. Issa?
Yes. Okay, can I have a motion to open the floor to citizens on agenda items only?
So move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Ramadan, seconded by Mr. Motzko. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the floor is open to citizens on agenda items only. Anything, Mr. Miller?
See the hands.
Okay, could I have a motion to close?
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Motzko. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moving on to committee reports. Okay, so I'm gonna start. I'm glad we got through the first part quickly because my report is a little long because I want to go over several things. So just please bear with me. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have several topics that I want to cover. So first is our school board goals. So these are different from the district's goals and they focus specifically on our board. These most recent goals were developed with the purpose of maximizing our potential as a team and keeping us accountable. So when we're all present and working together, that's when we serve our district and our students best. 2, protecting the confidentiality of executive session. And 3, increasing our board's professional development and keeping us informed of important education topics so that we can better do the work of the school board. So these goals are in no way meant to be punitive. They were voted on and approved on June 26th of 2024. So these are the board goals, and this is a review for the, the incumbent board members, but for the new board members, may be hearing this for the first time. So these are our board goals. Number one, to increase commissioner attendance at board and committee meetings. Number two, establish a policy on virtual attendance of board meetings by commissioners, addressing in particular executive session. And number three, prioritize dynamic and creative approaches to board professional development, which will foster teamwork and increase commissioners' knowledge. So in addition to those goals, at our retreat in 2024, we came up with a couple of recommendations. So they are, number one, assessing progress of board goals periodically throughout the year. So we decided on twice a year, like around January, and then again before the next retreat. So we're going to do our check-in today. And then the other recommendation was to include occasional discussion during board meetings of important public education matters via news articles or other credible sources in order to increase knowledge and awareness of critical issues that can or already do affect our district. So goal number one, increase commissioner attendance at board and committee meetings. So this is a carryover. This is the second year that we've had this goal. We approved it for the first time in August of 2023. So after our first retreat. So we don't have a full 2 years yet on that goal, but here are some stats. So from September of 2023 through December of 2023, we had 13 total absences. That means that there were 13 absences of all the board members. So in that same time period, September of 2024 through December of 2024, we had 11 total absences. So a little bit better. However, if you look at the whole year of 2024, the calendar year, January through December, we had 27 total absences. So, and that averages out to about 3, if you're looking at this as a whole, it averages out to about 3 absences per member. So, I mean, I realize that we're 9 board members and people get sick and, things come up unexpectedly, but it's a lot of absences. So, and, when we're absent, when people are absent, it takes away from the teamwork. They have to get caught up, So looking at this year, January through December, and given our goal, let's try to get the number of total absences down. 27 was for 2024. Let's try to get that down. And if everyone, does their best to only miss like 1 or 2 meetings, that will make a difference. And the result is that, the board will be together, working together as a team, which is our ultimate goal. For committee meetings, other than the finance committee, they really are not that frequent. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about committees. But, if you're only meeting a couple of times a year, you really shouldn't be missing those committee meetings. So, that's something to, keep in mind. Also, please be aware that as per NJSA 18A:12-3, and as per New Jersey School Board Association guidelines, board members missing 3 consecutive meetings can be grounds for removal from the board. So please don't miss 3 consecutive meetings. It's not that it absolutely will. There could be circumstances, but it can be grounds for removal. So please avoid that. Okay. So let's go to goal number 2. We did this. Goal number 2 was to develop a virtual attendance policy. So everybody should have gotten the virtual attendance policy today. I asked Lois to send it around. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. This took effect. We voted on it in September and we approved it, but it took effect in January. So the Board of Education also recognizes a board member may be unable to attend a board meeting due to several reasons. So 1, medical condition where the board member is prohibited from leaving their home due to the medical condition. 2, a commitment requiring the board member to be out of state during the time of the board meeting. Or 3, an unforeseen emergency or circumstance preventing the board member to be in attendance in person. So those are the 3 main reasons why you would need to attend virtually. The guidelines, I'm just skipping down now. The guidelines regarding remote participation of a board member during a regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting are as follows. The board member must submit a request or notification to the school business administrator, so Ms. Augustin, of the intent to participate remotely, no later than 12 p.m. the day of the meeting. Number 2, any board member will be permitted to participate remotely in no more than 4 regularly scheduled meetings in the calendar year from January through December. Exceptions will only apply to medical conditions. Let's see, let me skip down. 3, if a board member has previously participated remotely in 3 Board of Education meetings in the calendar year, all additional requests require the prior approval of the board president and count towards the 4 total allowed, regardless of whether the first 3 instances of virtual attendance were medical related. So if you can just let Ms. Augustin know. Once you have a 4th virtual attendance, you have to email me. And, it says by 12 o'clock of the day of the meeting, but, I do work. So if you know ahead of time, please let me know ahead of time, because it's, it's hard to be that day looking through things and trying to, make decisions and reading emails. So if you know ahead of time, please reach out before that. So, requests made to the board president shall be made a minimum of 24 hours in advance of the Board of Education meeting with anticipated circumstances, or no later than 12 p.m. on the day of the Board of Education meeting for unforeseen emergencies. And then if the board president is not available to review, the responsibility will fall to the vice president. So if you're going to email me, just copy Mr. Motzko, so that if I don't respond, like by say close of business of that day, Mr. Motzko can reply. Okay, this is another one. A board member may not attend virtually for more than 2 consecutive regularly scheduled Board of Education meetings. So only 2 consecutive. Let's see. The board member shall be counted in the quorum for the meeting and vote on resolutions as if physically present. The board member will be visible and audible with your camera on, your name on your screen. The board member shall be situated in a space where there is no disruption. The board member will listen to all aspects of the public meeting, to include but not limited to board member and administrative comments and deliberations, public comments and presentations. The board member will participate as usual, to include comments, questions, committee reports, full participation, even if you're virtual. This was a really important point, and this was one of the reasons why we did this policy. If the board needs to convene to executive session, the virtual board member will be excluded from the executive session. If the subject matter of the executive session requires action to be taken by the board, the virtual board member shall abstain from voting. They're not going to be in the executive session, but their participation will go towards, will be counted towards the quorum. So those are the main things. A couple of just final things here. The board member will not participate in only selected portions, but shall participate in the entirety of the board. So if you're participating virtually, you can't just come on for a part of the meeting or one part that you want to vote on, but then log off for the rest, because then it won't count towards your attendance. And then the last paragraph here: violation of this policy, in particular, any board member who exceeds the allocation of 4 regularly scheduled meetings attended remotely, or who participates in more than 2 consecutively regularly scheduled meetings, can be grounds for dismissal from the Board of Education. So any questions on that, on the virtual attendance policy? Good. All right, moving along. Let's see. Where am I here? Goal number 3. So goal number 3 is to increase our professional development and prioritize dynamic and creative approaches to board professional development that will foster teamwork and increase commissioners' knowledge. So this goal includes attendance at and participation in New Jersey School Board Association activities, but other activities count towards this as well. And this was something that we discussed, at our retreat and then in meetings since then. And this pertains to the recommendation of discussing topics, education topics at meetings, just so that we're all, aware, we're informed. So we asked board members to give topics, suggest topics for discussion during board meetings, and we had 4 suggestions. What is the teacher staff recruitment, screening, and hiring process? How does HPS develop the update grade level curricula? Cell phone use in schools? And then what grants and RFPs does HPS seek and why? So for the first one, the teacher recruitment and screening, Mr. Walker gave a pretty thorough presentation earlier in the school year on how he and his team recruit teachers, and he discussed challenges, especially the challenge of the teacher shortage, which has been a reality for several years now. The HPS, how does HPS develop and update grade level curricula? Miss Troy, she's an instructional coach here. She gave a presentation in, I think it was the October or maybe the early November meeting. And she discussed math coaching, how she works with teachers to develop curriculum and lessons and activities, and then how the data is used to assess student progress. And I think she didn't talk just about math. Did she talk about other subjects as well? Or
I think she talked about, because she would have most likely talked about both, because she specializes in ELA. I know Ms. Ramos kind of is her partner, but Ms.
Okay.
Ramos does math.
Okay, so she talked, right, so then she talked about both, okay. So cell phone use in schools, we discussed this very briefly in the fall, at a meeting in the fall, but the U.S. Department of Education has announced in December that they want all schools to adopt a policy on cell phone use. So I think it's worth revisiting HPS's policy and seeing what other schools in the area and in the region are doing. So, Mr. Walker, I'm going to ask you for our next meeting, our February 10th meeting, if you could, prepare some information regarding HPS's current cell phone policy. And then I have an article of what New York schools are doing.
And Ramsey started too. They started actually a few weeks ago. They started the cell phone lockdown. So what they do is they have the kids. They actually give the 2nd through 4th grade. They just keep it in their book bag in their locker. 5th grade and up, they have it in a little box that they give you, and you actually put it in your locker or something, or even if you carry it with you, but you can't open it or use it.
It's a pouch.
It's like
It's a
the
pouch.
magnetic pouch.
Right, it's a pouch, and then
Yeah.
It locks.
It locks.
Yeah.
And then the high schools are also with the
Yeah.
pouches.
So given this directive from the U.S. Department of Education, a lot of schools are going to be adopting
Ramsey
policies,
started it.
Yeah.
They are all full effect.
And I mean, I think we have a cell phone policy, but it's kind of broad, so I think that, we'll look at it and we'll talk about it. We'll see what other schools are doing. And I have an article from about New York City, or not New York City, New York State schools. So I can ask Lois to share that with everybody before the next meeting, and we can have a discussion about it. So that was one of the topics. And then lastly, what grants or RFPs does HPS seek and why? What is the process? What is our success rate? So that would be discussed at a future board meeting. And then one other topic that I think it is very important to include, because it's here to stay and it absolutely affects students and teachers, is artificial intelligence, and just, how it's being used already and how it, we could leverage it to benefit students. So that could be another topic.
Yeah, I know Ms. Troy and Ms. Ramos, they gave a presentation for our staff PD on Mondays, and that was one of the topics. That was the topic that they focused on today. So there's definitely a lot there.
Yeah, that would be a good one. Okay, so any questions about the topics? Okay. So next, I want to call your attention to the new committees for 2025. So I did have to change some things around. So board members, please check to see where you're at. Traditionally, our committees we meet, other than the finance committee, which meets before every single meeting because they have to check the budget, they, check bills, sign bills, review things. So other than the finance committee, the other committees really meet on an as-needed basis. The policy committee will meet more often because like 3 or 4 times a year, we have this, like a slew of new policies that we have to review. So that committee meets a little bit more often, but the other committees really just meet on an as-needed basis. So, understanding that the role of the school board, and by extension, the role of the committees, is to, govern and oversee and not to manage school operations. I think it would be a good idea for the committees to meet at least twice a year. Even if there's no particular business at hand, just to touch base, see how our district is doing within the committee's scope, and just see if there's anything that, we could improve, that maybe we're doing a good job. Just to touch base, I think it would be a good idea, but please do note that it's not meant, the committees don't need to create work, just for the sake of creating work. It's just a matter of touching base, see how the district is doing with those areas, whatever the scope of the committee may be, and then report out to the whole committee, to the whole board, how things are doing in that area. So chairs, I'm going to ask you to work with your committee members to plan 2 dates to meet this year. Come up with a short agenda of appropriate topics to discuss and review, and then report out at the next board meeting. And you can ask Lois to schedule the meetings. They can be directly before a board meeting, or they can be at your convenience. But let's try this. Let's try this and see how it goes, because we do have a couple of committees that really don't meet very often at all. So I think it would be good to touch base at least twice a year. All right, any questions on that?
I have a question in
Yes.
regards to that. So, you said like we can schedule it on our terms. That includes like if we did like a virtual meeting?
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. You could do committee meeting virtually,
Yeah, I've done committee meetings.
It's really just like at the committee's convenience. Sometimes it's more convenient to come before the board meeting, since we're all coming here anyway. But if virtual works better, and maybe it's during the day or whatever works for the committee. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, clarification, for the meetings at twice a year or twice a month?
Twice a year. Yeah, because I mean, there's no reason to meet if there's no business at hand, but it is good to touch base at least twice a year, just to kind of review your area, see how the district is doing, like, for curriculum and technology, how are we doing with curriculum and technology, just topics, come up with a short agenda of topics, what could we look at? Are we meeting, does our curriculum meet the state standards, things like that. It just depends on what your committee is, what your agenda would be, but it doesn't have to be like a lengthy meeting. It doesn't have to be a lengthy report, just to touch base and see how our district is doing in all those areas. Any other questions about committees? Okay. So almost done. I did want to call attention to the student interest survey on curriculum and technology 9.7. I think it's a really good idea to take the temperature of the middle school. There's a lot going on at that age, and it is critically important for schools to make sure that their students are equipped with coping strategies and support systems to help them overcome any challenges they may be experiencing, and help them navigate issues that inevitably will arise, whether they're commonplace or specific to a group of students or a certain student. We want to make sure that we're aware of their issues or concerns so that we can help address them. And we also want to make sure that our students feel safe in school and have a healthy environment that is conducive to learning and succeeding. All of HPS's SEL initiatives, as well as our everyday activities like clubs, initiatives, they're all geared towards helping our students be the best that they can be academically, socially, emotionally. So, Mr. Walker, once the survey is given out and you have the results and the next steps are determined, could we also get like a list of the SEL activities that have taken place so far this year? Like, I know there've been a lot because they're always on the agenda, like assemblies, activities. Yeah, even this new counseling group that's going to be starting, regarding grief and loss, just so that we can all have a big picture,
That'd
a
be
bigger
very
picture.
easy for me to put together. Yep.
Okay, great. All right, and then the only other thing, any questions on that? Okay, the only other thing I have is, just thank you to Dr. David Aji, he's the middle school ELA teacher. Thank you for his service to Hilden and its students, and we wish him the best in our future in his future endeavors. One housekeeping item, especially this is for the new board members, if you have questions for any of the agenda items, you can, what we usually do is when we go do roll call, when Ms. Augustin starts to do the roll call, if you have a question before you vote, you can ask your questions. We can have discussion if we need to, and then you can, vote. Okay, well, with that, thank you for your attention. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Walker.
Thanks. Thank you, Board President Meza. I want to first give an update on our front door project. As I know, I've been teasing that for about a month or so. Something seems to have happened whereby the architect and the door installer seem to have a bit of a difference of opinion regarding what the design should look like and what the materials that are needed. So that we're waiting for a slight redesign modification from our architect. Once they and the installers are both comfortable with the design and an outlay and materials for the project, then I'll present the project to the board. I know that the installer and the architect met at our campus, I believe it was last Monday, to review the project, and we're waiting for an update on that very soon. Nonetheless, this is still, the next high priority project. It was the expansion and the playground, and those got done well. But this one as well, we're going to make sure it gets done well. But right now we're in a little bit of an impasse that our two vendors are going to figure out, and then we move forward. On this agenda, you'll see an item referring to the ICL Sunday that the board president referred to. This stems from an initiative given to me by the board that sought to gain insight for the SEL needs, as well as the postgraduate plans and knowledge for our students. This survey has nothing to do with anything regarding sexuality or gender or any other topics that I know got a lot of attention in the state recently, although Jeff could probably have some memories of that. Not at Hilden. Nonetheless, I know that the word survey can trigger a lot of attention. So I wanted to be fully transparent with the board. So that's why I gave you a copy of exactly what the questions we're going to ask the students are. The students, of course, can opt not to take the survey, but based on the questions I reviewed, I expect that most, if not all, of the students will take the survey. Once we get the data, we'll extrapolate it. We'll look for patterns. And we'll use the takeaways as a survey, either as a means to improve existing services or potentially as the genesis of new services we'll look to offer. So if the board approves this agenda item, we'll look to administer the survey the following week. Item 3 on this agenda, you'll see that we are requesting to hold a dance for Valentine's Day. I was really impressed by how well the middle school kids did at the last dance for the holiday dance. And because they did such a good job and the class raised over $2,000, they asked to do one for Valentine's Day. So to me, I think they earned it. So I want to say yes. The topics about the cell phone, I'm more than happy to talk about kind of where things are at, both locally and kind of projected statewide, even nationally on that. I know that the verbiage that came from the governor's office talked about certain things like, potentially being medical waivers for students that might need a device for medically to be allowed to use it. So there's a lot of things that they're going to have to work through. And does a watch count as a cell phone? Because they can do a lot of the same things. So I'm interested to see what the recommended guidance is going to be. I also know too, like when we all went to school, we didn't have anything worth $1,000 on us, but these phones are very, very expensive now. So if we are going to look as a district to kind of prohibit their use or limit their use, I want to make sure that we have a system that makes a lot of sense, is protected, and it's not going to put the district in a bad spot or the kids in a bad spot. So there's a lot of planning and structure that is going to have to go into something like this. Philosophically, I'm not a huge fan of I like things being black and white from September to June, and then summertime's a good time to start a new rule change. So I really am reluctant to kind of jump mid-year into this. But just like we talked about, in the next year's budget, we're very likely going to look to put investment towards the vape detectors in certain areas. It's very likely that some kind of cell phone management is something that we're going to look to budget for, so that when we do it, or if we do some version of it, we do it well. The AI is also another really interesting topic. And then I didn't know Ms. Ramos did a really good presentation today on that. But if any board members interested, I can forward you their Google slide. I do have one very brief HIB to present during the executive session. It should be really brief, and there's going to be no action that the board will need to take.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Walker. Any questions for Mr. Walker? Okay, thank you. Ms. Augustin?
Thank you, Madam President. Just like Madam President said today, the Finance Team Committee did meet today. Other than the items on our agenda, which I'll go through, I just wanted to remind everyone about their financial disclosure forms that are due. The new board members, they're due this Friday, February 1st. Not sure if you guys, you're done? Okay, great. So if you're done, great. If there's any other questions you need or assistance on that, just let me know. All the other board members are returning April 1st is when it's due, and everyone, if we can try to get it in way before that, because sometimes they're returned for like, other questions or what have, that will be helpful because these are QSAC points. So we would like everyone to submit those on time, okay? Again, also, if there's any training that you have, please reach out to me if you don't know, if you need update on what your status is as far as which governance you're on, let us know so we can get that all done. And I believe those are due by the end of the year, but don't wait until the end of the year. Let's try to get it done as soon as possible, because then we're rushing. As far as what we discussed at the Finance Committee today, we talked about primarily everything that's on the agenda. We talked about all the resolutions, specifically the discarded items that are on the agenda for the furniture. This is majority of old furniture that needed, that was replaced during the construction. I believe we went through everything that is needed, and everything that's on the agenda now will be discarded, and we will approve that tonight, and it will go on GovDeals, which is the platform we use to sell outdated items or discarded items. And if they're not sold there, then we officially just, get rid of them, okay? 13.2 to 13.9 is all of the monthly financial reports for November and December, and all of the certifications for the board secretary's report. I believe 1310 and 1311 has to do with the Valentine's dance for the 6th and 8th graders fundraiser. This is the staff members that will be covering it. And there's also another resolution on the approving the actual fundraiser itself. We have our Mastio statement. This is the monthly statement of our food service program, showing the profit and loss for our monthly expenses versus our monthly profit, and also our year-to-date profit. The program is doing well, so there's no concerns there. We do have some equipment and other projects that we may need to look into to spend down the money because it's a separate enterprise, and the state doesn't allow us to be no more than 3 or 4 months of reserves. And if it is, they want to see that we're using that money to revamp our program. So right now, we're good. I know that we did receive notice from the state for last year to spend down some of the money, and I think we talked about it a couple of months ago in our finance team. And one thing we're doing is buying more new equipment, but we have to figure out what to do with the rest, and we're going to be in talks to that. We have our annual Chromebook purchase that we discussed in depth in the finance team, because there was the members wanted to understand why we buy the Chromebooks every year, and I explained to them how this is an annual purchase of outdated equipment, and we also discard some of the ones that have expired and they're really of no good use at that point. We have our camera on 13.16, which is cameras for our vehicles, school bus camera, and we discussed the installation process. I think we also discussed why it was on the truck too, and why we to making sure that cameras that we install on our bus, and all the contractors that we use have cameras on their bus. So we discussed that in length. And we also talked about 13.7 through 13.20, which is our child study team tuitions and transportation, approval again of the Valentine's Day fundraiser, wrestling fees, and also our monthly bills list. Is there any questions regarding any of the finances?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm confused about 13.18 through 19. I see it says terminate contract for ID 807, and then on 19, it looks like we're approving it, so I'm kind of confused on that.
You said 1319?
Yes,
13,
18, and 19. 18 is terminating it, and then 19.
I think it might be a different student.
Yes, so,
It's the same ID number.
yes, so Lois did explain it to me. She said that we have a student that we have to approve the contract to, terminate one contract versus, having us approve it, and then we terminated. We terminate this again on our next board agenda. We have to actually, in order to take action on any of these, we have to have it on the agenda as it is, and we have to do it in sequence.
So you terminate it, but approve it, and then next month we terminate it?
It depends on the contract. So I'll give you more details about that with the contract, but we do have to put it on here to terminate it, and we do have to approve this route because of this, I think she said it was other kids that are on there, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll find out more details about that, but we do have to do this. And her and I discussed that we have to have it on the agenda in order to take action on these and to move these forward because it was presented to us. So we did. Because there's a short time period between the two. So.
Any other questions?
I'm glad you know
I'm
this.
still confused.
It's the formality that we have to do.
Mhm.
And then we'll get the contract for the new contract.
Yes, we'll get the new contract.
And, if anybody, especially the new board members, if you have questions about, I know when I was a new board member, I sat with the business administrator for like an hour and a half, just going through budget stuff. It's very complex.
No, I understand that. It's just that.
The only thing I'm seeing here, though, is the dates are a little different.
Yeah, that's
Right.
it's a sequence of things. So we have to approve this from 12/2 to 12/24 to June because that is the contract we have prior to January 15th, the effective day of the termination. You see the effect on 13.18, the effective date is January 15th, but the approved contract for that small time period, this is what the contract is. For December of last year, we're retroing it to January 15th technically, but the contract is up to June that they originally presented to us. Yeah. So this will be prorated accordingly.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I get you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Augustin. Okay, so now we're just gonna go through quickly the committees. So personnel and management, Mr. Martinez. Are you there, Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Personnel and management?
Agenda items only.
Okay, curriculum and technology, Mr. Ramadan?
Agenda items only,
Okay, policy and public relations, Mr. Coletta?
nothing for this meeting.
Okay, security and safety, Mr. Coletta?
Again, nothing for this meeting.
Okay, community engagement, Ms. Quadrado?
Nothing on the agenda.
Okay, and then finance and physical plant, Mr. Matzko.
We met, we went over the bills. Business administrator went over everything else. Agenda items only.
Okay. State and county, Ms. Quadrado?
Okay. I have a couple things here. So just to recap, the month of on the 8th of January, NJSBA hosted a webinar for best practices for policy development and maintaining the manual. They did go over a couple of strategies that'll help to maintain the policy throughout the year, and review each section for any updates to keep in compliance with current laws. They did suggest maybe hosting a committee meeting with the policy committee like monthly to go through each section separately, just to make sure that it's in compliance with any updates that are in the law now.
Okay.
Next item I have, it was a report published on the 7th where Governor Murphy signs the new law for temporary relief in posting the public notices, allowing us to post public notices on the online version of the news. As long as they met the requirements for posting public notices in 2024. And that would allow the Board of Education to continue complying with the Open Public Meetings Act, as well as the ongoing evolution of the media landscape. Another item that we did speak about as well is Governor Murphy pushing for the cell phone ban, which we're gonna discuss further later on. He also addressed the shortage of teachers and how effective January 1st, the new law, which eliminates the basic skills test for people seeking teaching certifications. I also attended a webinar on January 10th for E-rate eligibility and virtualization of eligibility equipment and cybersecurity. And that just discussed Category 2 E-rate eligibility. So it basically explained NJSBA's tech programs using their procurement. Upcoming, we have on the 29th, which is this Wednesday, the Passaic County School Board Association's webinar. If you haven't registered, please register for that. And that topic is going to be transformative power of charter schools in New Jersey's public education. Also upcoming in March, we have NJSBA's annual Women's Leadership Conference. And with that one, you earn 3 board credits. An announcement from Passaic County School Board Association. They have open positions for their executive committee. These are 2-year terms from May of 25 through May of 27. And they're looking for a president, a first vice president, and a second vice president for legislation. And the submission deadline is at 11:59 on March 1st. Upcoming, we also have the Equity Expo, and that one is hosted by NJSBA. And its topic is understanding learning needs, school finding, and technology, and incorporating student voices. And that's on April 11th in Mercer County. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Guardado. The meeting, the county meeting, that's this Wednesday, it's virtual. And, the topic is charter schools, which, we're a public school. So we might think like, well, charter schools don't really pertain to us, but there are a lot of charter schools in Passaic County and in New Jersey. So it's going to be an interesting topic. That's also a choice for our 8th graders. They can go to a charter high school. So, it might be, and it's virtual, so you don't have to travel anywhere. It's a good one to attend. So I encourage you to register.
We pay for the tuition.
So
We pay for the ticket.
for the charter schools, okay.
Yeah.
It's part of our.
Right.
So they're
right.
public, so yours,
Yeah.
90% of the aid that you get goes.
It's gonna go to them too, though. They're gonna start receiving aid.
Well, not the high school ones, if they're in high school though. Once they graduate, then we wouldn't have to pay for that, right?
Right, like the
No,
taxpayer.
but we do
the
pay
taxpayer.
charter school.
So we pay for
Anyone-
charter schools now, right? But
Any
then,
kids that go from kindergarten to 8th grade, we pay the tuition.
right,
But if
so,
a child's in 9th grade, they go to charter school, that wouldn't be our responsibility.
That would
It comes from
That was high
Yeah,
school,
that's
but
what
we
I-
still pay for charter school. That's
Yeah.
what I'm
I see,
just saying. We
I
still
see.
have.
And we're gonna get-
And then
obligation.
you pay transportation on top of that,
Yes,
aid in lieu.
paid in
if
lieu,
it-
yeah.
and that doesn't change once they start receiving aid as well.
Doesn't work.
Wow.
So I
It's
know
gonna
it seems
eliminate our
like,
way.
the charter schools are our enemy, right? But they do good things. They do. And it is another option for students,
It's like the
so-
VOTEC. The VOTEC is another option too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different choices.
Yeah, and it's good for parents to have choices, so, in any case, although I suggest you send your kids if you live in Hilton to Hilton Public School.
I
Okay,
agree.
okay, so now we're gonna go to Mr. Merlino, you're going to do
Yeah,
your
so
ethics
they,
training?
so we have mandatory ethics and governance training each year, is annual. And it's a good piggyback after the board president's report and some of the other committee reports. just to remind you, like, what you signed up for here, and not to scare you away, but New Jersey School Boards Association did a survey. They said that the majority of school board members, you volunteer like 10 to 15 hours of your time each month to the kids, really to the kids in the school. It's a thankless job. You're not paid. You have all these requirements of training, the ethics, and you have financial disclosure. It really is a thankless job that not enough people know about. But what you donate back to the kids, it's so valuable, and it's there is a board appreciation month. I still don't think you get enough appreciation, but just know that everybody recognizes you and appreciates what you do. So 10 to 15 hours a month, like I think, is that about right? What you guys do?
Yeah, some months it might be more, some months it might be a little less, but some
But you
months.
usually have like 2 board meetings to prepare for that, a committee meeting, some of your training, some of the county meetings. Yeah, 10 to 15 hours. It's a lot. There's a lot of time away from your families, so but we appreciate it. But so what is your role? So we heard a little bit about the role of a board member. Number one is you oversee. You're not administering the district. You're kind of overseeing it. The first thing is policies. You're adopting policies. If you go onto the website, you'll see where it says policies, and you should take a look at it. It'll put you to sleep if you read too many of them, but take a look at it every once in a while, and you'll see what they're well written. They're very formal. There's a lot of them, stuff that you probably didn't realize that was thought about and codified as policies. What this district does, and most districts do, is we use a law firm. Strauss Esme is a law firm. It's two partners' names. They're a South Jersey school board law firm. And what they started doing is the state Department of Education wanted to have mandated policies. So this law firm said, you know what, we'll help you through that. And they really grew into a monopoly. So now they have every district, just about every district, and they do all the policy updates. And they do a really good job of it. So when you look at them, if you see an M, that's a mandated policy. That came right from the Department of Education. And that's something that we're required to adopt. And then if they do updates, you'll see Strauss Esme sends you monthly or like every 6 weeks or so a policy packet, like updates. And they'll say, hey, this one is M and it's been updated by the Department of Education. Here's those changes, and they'll highlight it. Sometimes they have like ones that are voluntary, and sometimes they have recommended ones, and there's some options. And the policy committee and the administration goes through all those each month, and then makes recommendations to the committee as to, hey, these are the changes that we think are good. Like the cell phone policy, there is a recommended policy from Strauss Esme, but there's a lot of options in there. So that's one that really is a work in progress. But it's a good example of that time commitment and how important it is to understand your responsibilities. And that first one is policy. The second one is overseeing the budget. This time of year, the budget's really up getting a lot of your time, right? So it's, it has to be adopted in March. And then in April, we have the public budget meeting. It gets advertised in the newspaper. So the budget is a really important thing. It really goes to how much are we going to raise taxes to the local taxpayer? How much are we getting? State aid comes at the end of February. There's the governor does, he's on his address. He kind of told everybody he's kind of warned everybody. And he's done a hiring freeze at the state level. So, but you'll know in the end of February how much individual state aid you get. And then, so let me go put that into the form, there's an accounting system, put it into the spreadsheet and come up with a budget. And then the budget committee, the finance committee, if you're over budget, then hey, what do we cut? What if you have extra money, hey, what do we add? Maybe a position or some curriculum. So that's number 2. Third thing is you're evaluating, you're hiring and you're evaluating the superintendent. It's the most important job. It really is the most important job here. His job is the most important, but you oversee him, you evaluate him, and you hire him, and you find them if there's an opening. Really important job. You're hiring your CEO. You're the board of directors. You're hiring the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. Really important. You also you represent the public in contract negotiations. So when we have, there's, all the employees have unions, the board members have a committee, and we negotiate, formal negotiations with the union. We've settled one, and you have many years of a settled contract, but when it's up, you'll see, it's a lot of time. It's very formal, it's a business transaction. We try to separate from emotions and how much you appreciate your staff. This is really about you're representing the district and the taxpayer, and doing those formal negotiations as to the next collective bargaining agreement with the staff. And then the fifth thing is you're the spokesperson, the public face of the school district. But that being said, and this is where the code of ethics comes, you lose your individual voice when you're a board member. You have no more individual voice. Now you're speaking on behalf of the Board of Education. Really important that you recognize that. So as much as you might have a personal opinion or a personal agenda or something you disagree with, because not everybody agrees with everything. But when you're a board member, you're speaking on behalf of the board, and you can only speak on behalf of the board that the majority of the board is taking action on. That's the really trickiest thing about being a board member, is to realize you no longer, it can you lost your individual voice. You can't speak as a parent. You can't come to the microphone and criticize the administration anymore. You now have to do what the board wants to do, and you have to just represent what that board majority wants. That's really the biggest learning curve on being a board member. So I don't want to take all that. This outline you kind of read on your own, but I just wanted to really go through some of the most important ones. So let's go to the code of ethics. So unlike U.S. Congress, U.S. Congress does, again, U.S. Congress, they're paid. It's a paid job, and they're paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. You guys are paid nothing. You spend 10 to 15 hours a month on this, and you have a code of ethics. They don't have a code of ethics, but you have a very formal code of ethics that even council members don't have. The New Jersey School Board, whatever at the time, this is like in the 80s when this came into being, really thought it was really important that school board members have this code of ethics. And there's 10 covenants. Really comes down to two things that you should be aware of. One is you always have to protect your personnel. So school personnel, you always have to protect, always. So the code of ethics says that even if you disagree, you cannot express that out in the public. And even in here, you have to protect personnel. So what does that mean? So the first rule, what that means in reality is we can't talk about personnel in public. So if you ever say, like, if we ever have a question about personnel, we have to go to executive session because we cannot talk on the microphone about personnel. Never talk about personnel in public. Somebody comes to the microphone and asks a question about a teacher or a staff member, we're really hamstrung. We cannot respond. We cannot talk about personnel in public. And then the second thing about that's important in these 10 covenants is confidentiality. So things that you learn as a board member, we can't talk like a student matter or again, a personnel or school matter. You can't talk about it. You have to keep it confidential. And I'll give you a good example of why it's important to remember this confidentiality and how hard or how easy it is to trip up on it. A couple of years ago, a school board member, there's an FYI. I don't know if, superintendent sends out a Friday packet and he sends out an email. Here's your FYI, some background information about what happened this week. It's all confidential. A school board member in Morris County, he received his Friday update. On Friday night, Friday evening on Facebook, he has a private Facebook page, or private, I guess a group, a small group, just family members, his spouse, his brother, his sister-in-law, very small group. But there was a lot of talk about, hey, the police were there when we heard there was drug dealing in the boys' bathroom today. And we heard there was 8th graders involved. They were selling drugs. He responded, he's like, well, no, in my packet today, it was the vape alarm went off and 2 boys, Johnny, and he put Johnny and Mikey, they were vaping and they got caught. The alarms went off. And under our policy, that means it's a mandatory drug test before they come back. And the police get called because the SRO is in the building. That's all he did. And he's put this on his family's Facebook page as to like, this is what happened. somebody forwarded it, his brother-in-law forwarded it to outside the group saying like, because there was a lot of chatter on the PTA and the moms. Somebody forwarded it, and now the parents of Mikey and Johnny, the two that he outed, file an ethics complaint against him. An ethics complaint is public, it's a public document. It ended up on the front page of the New Jersey Herald. He's got his picture now, ethics complaint against a board member for something as innocent as what he did. And you know what? It cost the district tens of thousands of dollars. It went through the Attorney General's office, becomes the prosecutor on it. It went to court. He missed time from work. He had to go down to Newark, and there was like a trial on it, and he lost. And he was kicked off the board for something that innocent. So those two things. Never talk about personnel. Anything you learn here is confidential. Don't even talk to your spouse or your family members about it. So really important. That was a really hard example as to the realities of these code of ethics. The other thing is, so there's 10 things, but really comes down to those two. And then there's also a separate prohibited acts or conflicts. There's another 10 of those. But that really comes down to one important one. And if you work for a company, that company cannot do business with the Board of Ed unless you disclose it and unless you abstain and refrain and you can't vote on it, you can't be part of discussions. And you really have to check with the administration and me as to whether this conflict is so big that we can't even do business with that company. So it's that company conflicts, and again, the code of ethics, personnel can't talk about it and keep everything confidential. Those things are really important, and if you just remember those things, I'm sure you'll do fine. But the goal is to keep you up out of the New Jersey Herald or the Bergen Record or the NewJersey.com. Because in that situation, like I said, it cost the district tens of thousands of dollars in the newspaper. Now you search his name, like if he goes for a job or like a mortgage, like now he's got this a public ethics complaint against him. Like it's going to impact his life. All for something he volunteers his time, a lot of time, 10 to 15 hours a month for, it's just amazing. And it really is unfortunate. And it was an honest mistake, but it's something I just wanted just to make you aware of. And that's why we have this annual mandatory ethics training. So I don't want to go through, there's a lot of other stuff here. A little bit about Robert's rules. The board president mentioned about executive session, and I mentioned confidentiality. We can't talk about personnel in public, but we can talk about personnel in executive session. So we follow Robert's rules, and Robert's rules say, kind of support that, like have an executive session. And there's 9 things that we can talk about in executive session, and only in executive session. And there's personnel, it's contract negotiations, it's student matters, it's HIB, which is a student matter, some family matters, some construction issues with vendors. Those are for executive session that we can't talk about in public, but we have to talk about in executive. And the other thing about I guess Robert's rules that's important is that, and it's 2 things that it's really how many votes and how many affirmative votes we need to pass motions. Really simple thing is anything about personnel and whenever the board spends money, those 2 things, we need a majority yes vote of the core of the majority of the board. So not just a quorum, but the majority of the board. So we need yes votes on personnel and spending money, contract matters. Everything else, we need a majority of the quorum present to pass things. And the majority, when I'm saying a majority, it's a yes vote, not abstentions, not recusals, but a yes vote. So that's really the important things just to remember about Robert's rules. But Robert's Rules of Order, you can look that up on the internet. It goes back like 200 years to the colonial days. It came from Britain, from Great Britain. When they came here, they brought their system of parliament and their rules about how they operated government and government meetings. We've adopted that, and it still goes through like school boards. It goes through Congress, even private corporations. The board of directors use it too. It's amazing that it survived. Not many amendments, and it kind of works to this day. A little antiquated in some things, some of the language, but just it gave us executive session, which was really necessary.
And it gives the meeting structure and order.
Yep.
You know, which is really important.
But any questions on ethics? Well, if anything arises, when you look through this, you know, ask, you can send the email to the board president, and you'll forward it to me if you can't answer it, but you've been pretty good at answering everything.
For sure.
Right, and then the last page is a disclosure. It's just that the annual acknowledgement. If you haven't signed this already, if you could rip this off and just sign and print your name and just give it to Anika. CUSAC, we get a point if everybody it says that we received this training on ethics.
Mr. Murray, I do have a question. So the gentleman who had his name in the newspaper, did he have to pay any fines himself?
No, he did not. So he didn't pay financially that way. But again, he was in the newspaper and he was found guilty of this ethics violation. So he paid, but he didn't have to pay any fines.
So the board have a handbook? Do we have a handbook?
A little bit, yeah, this is a
No,
little
I mean,
bit.
A handbook, like in terms of what, like,
well, I mean, when I went to the governance workshop, every district they had a handbook, so I just wanted. I guess in the handbook it probably would discuss like I don't know, maybe rules on board.
So in the policy, so if you look in your policy, the policy manual that's online, the first section is called the bylaws.
Right.
Those are
That would be
your
part of-
direct
okay.
rules about how those are board policies on how the board acts
Okay.
and your role. So you should look at those first.
there's
So
also,
I'm just wondering.
there's also like a document on Robert's rules, like we got when we went to the workshop in Atlantic City, they always have that training for Robert's rules. And they give you, I think there's like a document, it's like a little book.
I have a little book.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, yeah,
but I
just so if you want to become familiar with like the, you know, the
I have it,
protocol.
I just didn't know if maybe I didn't receive.
That's a
it.
good question.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Rubino. All right, now, let's go back and vote. Personnel and management, Mr. Martinez,
Yes, I'd like to move 8.1 through 8.12, please.
can I have a second?
Second,
Moved by Mr. Martinez, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Serna?
I have a question. For 8.1, 8.6, were there any exit interviews conducted?
8.1, no, 8.6, it's not my employee, it's not our employee, it's the service provider's employee.
Both of them?
The 8.1 is our employee and we did not give an exit interview. He's still working for us for a limited number of times, so we can. But for 8.6, it's not my employee to interview.
Okay, so for 8.1, will there be an exit interview?
I don't know, I'll get back to you on that.
Meaning who would conduct it?
We haven't done exit interviews. If that's something that this board, you know, would like to see us, you know, do in the future, I have no problem setting up.
So I should add, so this is right into this ethics. So exit interviews, it's one of those management things. So your boards don't get involved in exit interviews. The administration can, and they can share that the results with their other administrators, but it's been decided by the School Ethics Commission that board members don't get involved in exit interviews. That's what you hire the superintendent for. But it's a good question. As you would think like a good corporate structure would have exit interviews. You may hear it, but it's an administrative.
Is that like given a reason for why they're leaving? Like an interview?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, see, so I know that reason, but, you know, it's one of those things that if this board, you know, wants to make it so that, you know, there's some kind of exit interviews that every employee gets whenever they leave, and that's something, you know, like I said, I'm not really a black and white from September to September, but that's something where if we made it the new normal starting the school year, that's just what the board wanted to do, I'd have no problem with that.
But if we were to implement a policy like that,
But you don't
We
get the
wouldn't
results.
discuss
No,
it.
you
We
don't
wouldn't
get the
discuss it.
results. You just
Right.
you just implemented a policy that it's required.
right,
Everybody
right,
gets an exit interview, but you don't get to see the
Right.
results.
right.
But you can implement a policy.
But you can implement the policy requirement.
Any other questions, Ms. Serna?
I actually have a question on 8.10. Were there any other candidates
Yes,
for this position?
this was the reason the employee that's in that agenda item, he was hired, not as a permanent staff. He was in for a leave replacement. But he was doing so well that, when the opportunity came for us to find a way to keep him here at HPS, that's why we went to the board maybe a month or so ago and asked to change it from STEM to STEAM, because his maternity leave in English was set to expire, I think, within a month or so. So we had seen this particular individual in action with the kids. We were very impressed. We're happy to keep him.
So it was supposed to be STEM, not STEAM? Like the same thing they
It
have
used
in
to be
Manchester, I
STEM.
guess?
It used to be STEM, and then we added the arts because this gentleman had a language arts certification, and that allowed him to teach the STEAM program.
So is he gonna be like a floater?
No, he's going to be full because
does
the
he
person
have,
that's
like, a
leaving is
designated
gone.
class?
He's going to be our full-time STEAM teacher within a couple weeks, provided the board approves it.
So he was, like I said, he was the only one but you just moved him up from.
The only person that applied that for this particular job there was one other person, but then he said that the other candidate said, I'm not willing to start until September of next year, and that was too late for us. So, but this candidate was excited to be part of it. The amount of there used to be a time where any position we put in for, my phone used to buzz a lot because we get so many applicants. It's at a point now where a middle school science, technology, engineering, and math thing, it's crickets. It's the same with, we're going to be looking for certain teachers. We know people that have told me they're going to retire. And there's some spots where I know it's not going to be incredibly difficult to find someone good because there's going to be a lot of people because that's their certification. And there's going to be other people that leave where it's going to be, wow, we're going to be fortunate if we get more than one applicant in certain positions.
So doesn't that leave you in a corner of like whoever comes in the door, they're just going to hire?
Sadly, it's my responsibility to hire someone that's certified, and the amount of certified free agent teachers or teachers from other, it's becoming less and less and less. It doesn't mean that we're going to invest long term in someone if we're dissatisfied with their performance results once they get here. But I'm obligated to if I need a biology teacher, I got to find someone with a middle school science degree. And a lot of the people with those skills right now could probably make more money in the private sector. So it's just, you're getting those people with those talents that just happen to really like kids, but there's less and less of them right now.
So are we short on staff? Like
We're fully staffed, but it's been a major issue, priority for us to keep it that way. But we're fully staffed right now.
And your presentation in September, I think it was September, October, explained the very robust process that HPS has for recruiting teachers. And it's like throughout the year. It's not just when they have the job fairs.
I'll be at job fairs throughout the school year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's throughout the year, and there is a teacher shortage. So. Yeah,
but not go with that was our first priority for our 5-year strategic plan was to keep that as being something we're fully staffed, because everything works better when we're fully staffed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've been able to stay just one step ahead of the action, I guess, in that regard.
Any other questions, Ms. Serna? Your vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Coletta,
Yes.
Ms. Quadrado,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxell,
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan,
Yes.
and Mrs. Zissou.
Yes. Okay. Curriculum and technology, Mr. Ramadan.
Motion to move 9.1 to 9.8.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ramadan, seconded by Mr. Motzko. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Turner,
I'm gonna abstain from 9.2 and yes to everything else.
Mr. Coletta,
Questions or discussion if possible?
Yes.
Regarding 9, 2, 3, and 4, as the person who always looks at how much we're spending, since I've joined the board, looking at public records, we spent about $1,600 to send board president Isa to conferences. I don't think it's a good use of taxpayer money to send to these conferences that if you look, I have it pulled up. It says the goal of this one-day event is to empower and uplift leaders and help them strengthen their resilience, confidence, and communication skills. I see 4 super successful women who have been elected to the Board of Education, have been successful in the private sector. I don't think that there's any need to send to a conference and just waste taxpayer money when we could, spend that better elsewhere. It's not our money to spend. So I would say yes to 9.1, no to 9.2, 3, 4, and then yes to 9.5 through 9.
2, 3, 4.
Okay, I would like to, since this is a discussion, understood that it is money spent. But there is money allocated in the budget for professional development of the school board. Is that correct, Ms. Augustin?
Yes.
And this, Ms. Quadrado and I attended last year. It was a very good conference. It's just like professional development for the staff. It all goes towards our increasing knowledge and being better at the job that we do. So, I respectfully disagree. I think it's a very good use of, and it's not, I believe it's 119 was the price, I think. $119, was that the cost?
Madam
Yeah,
President, can I add to this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think I just want to add, from my point of view, last year I was a new board member and, attending that did give me empowerment to speak a little bit more and to be more involved in meetings. So I do see the benefit of going.
Yeah.
So you went last year.
Mhm.
You both went?
Yeah, we both went last year, yeah. And this goes for all of the board members, there are most of the trainings and the professional development offered by NJSBA is free because we're members of the association. But there are some that have a cost and to me, it's money well spent.
Is it a different agenda this time or?
Yeah, they haven't released the agenda yet, but it surely will because all of those annual conferences always change the topics and they have different speakers. And so there will be a different theme this year than last year. Yeah. Yes.
Last point.
Okay.
Like I said, it's not anything negative towards anybody on the board. I think you're all super successful. You all do very well. Regarding the statement of while there may be money allocated for it, it doesn't mean that we're required to spend the money. When we can save money and not spend money, I think that would be the more fiscally prudent thing. But again, it's not a shot at any of the 4 of you. I know you're not listening to attend, but that was just from the fiscal standpoint, not anything personal or anything inside.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, so I think I was on, Ms. Quadrado, did you?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxell,
Yes,
And they're
Yes.
voting with the recommended exceptions, right?
what do you mean?
Wouldn't Ms. Johnson have to
For
excuse herself?
what? For myself?
Yes,
Oh,
abstain,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Oh, and Ms. Serna too.
Yeah,
Ms.
she-
Serna too has
she
to- Oh, she
abstained,
did.
she
Okay,
I
good.
didn't know if
Okay.
it was like,
That was where I couldn't find where it.
Okay, I was like,
Oh,
wait a minute,
yeah.
yeah, so you wanted to abstain
Yep,
from
abstain.
your resolution, approved resolution.
But I
Okay.
believe Ms. Codwriter as well.
I'm not on
No,
there
she's
yet.
She's not on there.
All right, okay. I'm sorry.
Mr. Ramadan
Yes.
and Mrs. Issa.
Abstain on 9.4 and yes to the rest. Okay, so let's go down to finance and physical plant. Mr. Motzko?
I'd like to move 13.1 to 13.23.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Motzko, seconded by Mr. Coletta. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Serna? Mr. Coletta?
Yes.
Ms. Quadrado?
I'm going to abstain from purchase order 500431 and 500326 on item 1323, and yes to the rest.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes.
Mr. Moxell,
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan,
Yes.
Mrs. Issa.
Abstain on, PO 500878 on 13.23, and yes to the rest.
Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to open the floor to citizens?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Mosco, seconded by Mr. Coletta, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the floor is open to citizens, if anybody would like to address the board. Nobody, Mr. Miller? Okay, can I have a motion to close?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Matsko, seconded by Ms. Quadrado, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we do have an executive session. So, Mr. Martinez, you will not be able to participate in the executive session, so you will have to, you'll be locked out or put in the waiting room.
No action to follow.
No action to follow. So, Ms. Augustin, Mr. Martinez, he should stay on so that when we come back, we can adjourn.
It's up
It's up to you, Mr.
You
Martinez.
can go. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so you don't have to stay on then.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And can I have a motion? So we will take, I would say like 10, 15 minutes.
This should be even quicker than, I think this should be really, really quick.
Okay, no action will be taken. So can I have a motion to move into executive session?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Matsko, seconded by Ms. Quadrado. Do we have to do roll call or can we do all in favor?
I could do all of it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
If you want to participate, if you guys can forward it to me through into office, you can stop by the office. Some people, sell it to me, that's fine. And I'll go pick up a gift card before, let's say maybe a week before the PTA event, Tricky Trade, which is March 19th. So if you guys can make sure you forward that the funds to me, and I will go out and buy a gift card on behalf of the board. And usually this is an annual participation of the board every year. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, let me know. Okay, if you guys have other ideas on what you would like to do for the Trick or Treat, that would be good. Okay.
Is there a limit, like a maximum limit?
Nope, just whatever you want. Usually, I don't set an amount, whatever everyone wants to donate, that's fine. And whatever the max is, I'll get a gift card on that behalf.
I do have one question,
Yeah.
just to clarify. When we're talking about, it's for Mr. Molino. So if, in regard to that new policy that's in effect now, if someone is anything wrong with the policy, that would invalidate their meeting, right? So it wouldn't count as them being at the meeting. So if they weren't following any of the rules, and like you said, if they log on, log off, or any of that stuff, it would be that they were not counted as part of the meeting, correct? Or any of those stipulations that are in there?
I don't think we're that strict for that. So if somebody
But
Has
do you mean it
trouble
wouldn't count
logging
towards
in.
the quorum of the meeting?
Well, no,
Is that
like,
what you mean?
because I wrote it down, I just happened to look at it.
there is a bylaw about the 3 meetings in a row.
Right, so if somebody was like, say they only participated in part of it,
Mhm.
or any of the other stipulations that you have to be on.
Right.
If they didn't follow those, that wouldn't count as an attendance at the meeting, correct?
I don't think we're that strict on that. So I think if you came on a portion of the meeting, I think that would count as.
That's why I'm asking, because it said that it was to be counted, so I just want to
Well,
make sure.
I think the
I thought it said in the, let me look, because it said it, well, actually, I don't think it defined that it wouldn't be counted, but it said that you shall participate. So it
Right.
says the board member requesting participation in a board meeting through the use of an electronic device shall participate in the entire board public meeting under the conditions outlined in this policy. The board member will not participate in only selected portions, but shall participate for the entirety of the Board of Education meeting. So it doesn't actually go as far as to say,
Okay.
if you violate that, it won't count towards your attendance.
Yeah, I don't think we're
But-
that strict, especially with a new policy. So
So then, but what happens if somebody just comes on and they're just on for like 2 items and then they log off? It still counts?
It's still, I think it would still count, certainly
Okay.
his first
Yeah, it's
year.
like-
All right, well, I would encourage
no-
everybody not to
nobody's-
do that.
Even in the past, nobody's ever missed 3 in a row, so like, I can't imagine anybody missing 3 in a row, even if this was one of the 3, it's not.
Right, and I mean, I guess we will just strongly encourage, if you do have to attend, remotely, to please stay on for the entire meeting.
But we understand, like, sometimes things happen, internet goes down, and then you lost, you know, it's hard, we're not gonna be like that strict with it.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for clarifying that, because I was gonna say won't count, but, you know, I guess if it's not in the policy, then we can't really say that, so, okay, but we'll certainly encourage people to stay for the whole meeting. Okay, can we did we adjourn? No, we didn't. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Coletta, seconded by Mr. Motzko, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.